All right, it is time for the Gunsmith Show, and we are quarter past the hours when we really usually dig into good subjects, and we have a great subject right here with us today. We have former state rep Ken Horn, who's running for the 32nd District Senate seat. Is that correct?
That is correct.
All right, Ken, welcome aboard, sir. How are you?
Oh, I'm doing great, thank you.
So, Ken, you are from Frankenmuth?
I am. Been there for 30 years.
Well, we won't hold that against you. You're a skinny guy. How do you do it? If I lived there, I'd be huge.
Well,
I am huge.
Yeah, you're only seeing me from the chest up right now.
There you go. Oh, it's good. Well, it is a beautiful place to live, though. I know I've got a lot of friends up there, and it's one of those don't lock the door communities, and we don't have many of those around.
I know, but you know what? I'm finding that down here in Genesee County as well. You're looking at Flushing and Fenton and some of these small towns down here. You know, it feels like home.
Oh, yeah. Well, I got to tell you, and this is honest to God's truth. I was in 4 different homes yesterday where I mentioned your name.
Mm-hmm.
And they said, oh, we stopped by and shook our hand.
Oh,
and I said, well, that's awesome.
Yeah.
And they said, well, that's a good reminder to vote for him. So I said, well, there you go. He's coming on our show tomorrow. So, but Ken, we don't know a ton about you, but this is your chance to. We met you actually at the Flushing Fair or the parade.
Yes.
We were on the parade grounds together. We were marching with the Knights of Columbus, and you were right next to us. And I introduced myself and said, you know, if you're willing to, and I got a feeling you're a red-blooded American that understands gun rights and laws.
Well, let me tell you, kind of head into it. But my background is that I'm first-generation American. My father fled the Berlin Wall to come here.
Wow.
To the United States, for the hope of freedom.
Mm-hmm.
And my grandfather, Bruno Horn, died in a Russian prison camp right after the war. And and my dad saw what was coming, and he came here. A very modest life in a very exceptional country, but you learn to understand about property rights, and in the Second Amendment, the First Amendment, and those things are very precious to us.
Those two are very important.
I never want to let people take that for granted.
Right. First and Second Amendment, what it's all about. The rest of them kind of play along behind, but I know they're all important, but goodness, without the second, we couldn't have the first, and without the first, we couldn't have the second.
Yes.
So it's a very interesting point to look at. So you're first generation.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. So did you guys move right to Frankenmuth area? Or
no, they were sponsored in by a little Lutheran church in Detroit, Michigan.
Yeah.
They lived in Indian Village. We lived over top of a garage, right next to the church for 2.5 years before my before my family bought a little house off Woodward Avenue. And so I grew up, lived in Oakland County, but I came to Saginaw County. I worked at the Flint Truck plant on Bristol Road or Van Slyke.
Sure.
And
drove right past it on the way here, didn't you?
Yeah, I did.
You almost turned in to go to work.
I know. But I worked there for 90 days, got laid off, and that was back in 1979 when when the Japanese were were
hurting the market.
Yeah, they were hurting.
Quite a plunge in that year. That was
they were teaching us how to build cars all over again, and I moved up to Frankenmuth, met my wife. I was working at Bavarian Inn, and she looked really cute in her dirndl, and so I had to snag her up.
There you go. Well, that's good. That's a very good nutshell. Thank you. So since then, you've been busy.
I have.
What do you do now?
Well, I have a little consulting business, and I do energy consulting. We try to reduce energy bills for municipalities. We're working with the city of Saginaw right now to reduce their energy rates. Street lights, HVAC systems, steam collectors, all that stuff.
So many ways to pinch pennies out of that, and truly not hurt the job market either, because sometimes to make it more efficient, you're going to keep the same manpower going. Might not change as many light bulbs these days as we used to, but with the LEDs and everything cities are putting in, but. We could talk about that in our other show.
Well, I know, but I used to chair the House Energy Committee, so I got to know this one company, and they're very reputable. So I just have a consulting business that I contract with them, and then I worked in the meantime with a small business that was promoting skilled trades and hands-on learning, and we've got a lot of jobs out there, machining jobs. Welding jobs that are going unfilled right now because we don't have skilled people.
Right.
The governor's really got a big push on that as well. So, there are a lot of things we can do, but we got to really bring back manufacturing in Michigan.
Well, that's
Flint. Flint and Saginaw are right at the heart of it.
Oh yeah, it's. I'm not calling it the Rust Belt because they've tore all the plants down.
Mm-hmm.
It's not like you see when you go through Pennsylvania years ago where it was all empty plants that are just they've tore them all down here just about.
Oh, you see John Deere's out there plowing the land now.
Well, urban sprawl. Now we're gonna have big urban gardens. I don't know.
That's right.
I don't know if I want to eat the food off of New York City or not. But if anything's growing there, but we do catch the fish out of the Flint River now, though, so that's good.
Yep.
But what's your take on right to carry? What do you think about right to carry?
I've got my CPL, and
Good.
and it's and I got it back in 2009, just to basically to prove I could do it.
Oh yeah.
And it's and I keep a little protection next to me and
Sure.
bedside, and
Yep.
but I don't carry often because my day just takes me everywhere, and
Right.
when I leave here, I'll end up at the Catholic Church car show up in Birch Run, and eating pancake breakfast. But
Yep.
they may end up asking me to to bartend at the at the beer tent or whatever.
But the nice thing is, it is your right, and you accept that.
Yes.
And I know we don't carry all the time either, so it's it is part of. And I wanted to expand on it just for a second, if I could. Like I say, we don't carry all the time. We never open carry unless we're hunting, and just because my attorney says it's not smart to open carry.
Yeah.
You're the first target, and you're the first reason for the police officers to instantly have their guard up. So we accept open carry. We know there are people that fully endorse it and live that lifestyle, but we just don't choose to do that. But hats off to those that do, I guess. So just be careful when you do it. Now, as far as gun laws coming down the pipe, I know you're a former state rep, so you've had some of that legislative situations where you're seeing House bills and stuff coming through the House, correct?
Yes.
A couple weeks ago, Jake took time to research a couple of recent votes, and that boy, he dug in deep and saw the people that voted against. Voted for opening up all the CPL holders and listed every one of them, and I think there was 32 out of the state, which isn't bad.
Yeah.
And they were defeated, so we were glad for that. But I think it's very important that people do that so that everybody's entitled to their own opinion, and they are representing voting blocks. My point is, when you have a vote, that vote when you cast that vote for the people in your district, that vote's there forever, and you're held accountable for it. So, I can only assume at this point, I didn't delve into your record to see how you voted, but I hope you're a fairly pro-gun candidate.
Well, I didn't think to bring it because I didn't go into the garage, but I've got a piece of literature that I hand out, at gun shows and, showing my history, my record, with Second Amendment. But I think the most important vote I'd ever cast or bill I co-sponsored was to repeal the no safe, the safe zones.
Oh yeah,
and I was a little disappointed that a bill didn't pass that would have done that, because I agree with you on your opinion on open carry. There are people out there well trained and they understand the laws, but the transportation then of the weapon becomes an issue.
Sure does.
And in the legal issues that you become a target of the police when you're in a busy town, and they see that on your hip. But what I look at is with open carry, especially if you look at it in a school, and these kids, all of a sudden they're wide-eyed because they see this, they see this weapon on your hip. I would like to see people be able to be a little more discreet about it. If they're there to pick up their kids and they're carrying, they're well trained, they know what they're doing.
Right.
And if they've got that under a jacket or tucked into a back pocket and nobody sees it, then nobody's alarmed by it.
Exactly. Yeah,
and that's where the concealed carry, eliminating those no carry zones, basically would have benefited, because you could, kids aren't going to see the guns. You can still carry them, but the kids. And we had Steve Doolin on about a couple months ago, and he was discussing that and how, unfortunately, the day that the governor was supposed to sign it was the same day as Sandy Hook shootings.
Yes.
And that really basically put the kibosh on that.
Well, you've got, and I can see the politics of that, and in the governor, I'm not sure what much more he could have done. It's just a terrible circumstance either way. Yeah. And I don't want our politics in Michigan to outshine, the tragedy that happened at Sandy Hook either. And But you look across the country over decades, and the knee-jerk reactions by lawmakers that, that all of a sudden they want to stop something, after the tragedy down in Florida, the Trayvon Martin issue.
Right.
All of a sudden you've got people wanting to open up the standard ground laws and the Castle Doctrine.
Castle Doctrine, yeah, mm-hmm. That's the one that everybody points their finger at. The media points their finger at, saying, "Look at how bad it is." Mm-hmm. But look at the countless people that are protecting themselves and are still alive today that aren't victims. They're still victims of crime because they were assaulted in some way, shape, or form, but they defended themselves, or even the fear of defending themselves scared off the assailant. So it's a tough situation to be in, that's for sure, but that's life in America. There's a lot of us. And just in our lives, the population of this country is what, doubled? Mm-hmm. So roughly. And that's awful lot of people to try to govern, which they do the best they can, I think, to a point. Some do, some don't, but oh well. That's politics.
Being first generation, and your father coming from overseas the way he did, did he how do I say this? Did he discuss much about the importance of what happens when guns are taken away and how the masses were just kind of... No,
he didn't, because he didn't think about that kind of thing, really. I grew up on a farm, just as a farmhand, and, we had 500 acres, and we had a big 40-acre lake in the middle of it. It was a beautiful time to grow up as a kid, so 12 years old, through high school, middle school, and we hunted and we fished, and I got to know that lifestyle, but my dad never did. Yeah. It wasn't something that he grew up with, and so we teach that then to more of the freedom. My right to free speech comes from the higher power that gives me vocal cords, not from not from government.
Right.
Government can only take that away and restrict it. And the same thing with guns. My right to carry is given to me by the higher power that gave me opposing digits, right? and I could choose to hold a gun or a baby or a piece of watermelon, with it, and it's only government that can take those rights away. The Constitution doesn't give us those rights; they just protect them for us, and so those are the things that we try to teach people as we go along the way.
Excellent. Well, we're here speaking with Ken Horn, running for state senate in the 32nd seat, and we're really looking forward to more discussions here. So I'm not ending it. I just wanted to remind people who was on the radio with us. So remember, that's Ken Horn. So basically, you're looking in the Genesee County area. We're looking all the way up the left side or the right side of the county.
Left side.
No, left side. I was picturing the map a different way. So from Fenton all the way up through Montrose, and then pretty much, almost a huge chunk of Saginaw County.
Yeah, they moved Senator Robertson's district east a little bit. So I'm looking at, I'm campaigning down in Fenton Township in Linden City, and he'll be still covering Fenton City. They've moved John Gleason's old district, which is annexed now, east a little bit. So it left this big gap. Just a changing demographics.
Yep.
And so,
it's political change every few years. We change those districts. So redistricting. I ran for office in 2000, so I saw some redistricting then too.
Yeah,
so
you betcha.
Fun to see, but sometimes a pain for the people because it gets confusing. Yesterday I went online and just went Michigan.gov and posted the question, 32nd district, and it showed the old one and it showed the new one. So at least it showed a comparison of what the new one's going to be. So
it just gave you a huge distance to travel, though.
But
for me, it's geographically, it's a very good district because it's all freeway. So if you think about Genesee County and everything, all the full townships west of 23.
Yeah.
It's all freeway. It takes me less time to get to Fenton Township than it does to get to St. Charles, which is in the middle of Saginaw County. And so it's actually geographically, you should vote for me because it's perfect for me, distance wise.
You won't need a chopper, so our mileage expenses won't be very high.
That's right.
Well, it's cool because I'm on the geographical boundary. I'm right in your district, and so we're happy for that. We're happy to have you on board with us. So I appreciate you coming in today for one thing, but I have that question we have to ask, and that is. Do you have a favorite gun?
I've got a Ruger LC9 that I have now. Yeah. But growing up, if my memory serves correct, because this was high school days, Dan Weston 44, and we used to have Oakland County Sheriff's deputies come and they'd hunt on our property, and and they would bring 38 reloads, and you could shoot that gun all day long. And it was just beautiful.
Oh yeah,
beautiful, and it had changeable barrels on it. And,
and so are interesting. Like that.
So it was that I think growing up that was my favorite.
Yeah.
And I'm these days I'm not much of a hunter. I got away from that just because life showed up on me, and family and kids, and ran a business 80 hours a week, and I taught and trained martial arts, and that took a lot of my time. So that was really my hobby, and so hunting was never a big part of my life after kids,
right?
But
that does change it.
Yeah, but you have to have friends that do hunt, and so once a year we get together to make sausage over at Claire Beer Lines, and
there you go. Well, that's good. We I know when I had kids, the first one came along, Jacob, boy. I said, okay, good. Everybody started buying me little tiny camouflage clothes for my son, so I was very happy. Shortly thereafter, I had a second son, Tommy, and more camouflage clothes showed up. So those boys grew up in the woods with me. So they've grown up hunting with me, and that was their lifestyle. I working years ago, 20 years ago, I was working in a Ford plant, and in my toolbox I had a picture of Jacob in my hands. We both had earmuffs on, and I was shooting a 1911, a Colt 45, actually an old World War II Remington Rand model, and I had most of the guys would walk up and go, oh, wow, that's awesome. What a great picture of you and your son. And then I had the flaming liberal step up and said, how dare you fire a gun that close to a child?
Oh, I know.
And I'm like, please step away from the toolbox.
Yeah.
Go find your testosterone and come back and talk to me.
And one of my favorite pictures that I post on Facebook, because you'll see I'm very active on there as well, is I see you've got a great page. And
thanks.
And but I showed a picture of my daughter shooting with a pair of earmuffs on and shooting up at Duncan's up in Bay City.
I was just up there a couple weeks ago.
And she had a friend with her that came here from London, and we asked him, he was sitting poolside, and he said, what do you want to, what did you always want to do? And he said, shoot a gun.
Oh, yeah.
And so
they don't get the chance.
No,
they just don't.
In England, yeah. So we got him out there, and he had a ball.
Well, thinking back, okay, let's look back 70 years ago. Imagine if the British public then didn't know how to shoot guns. Where we'd be now.
Yes.
So I think it's very important that we keep a gun culture in this country, and we understand it well, and don't stop it. Believe it or not, and you probably do believe it. You might even feel the same way. I don't know if you can speak it out loud or not, but I'd like to see gun safety trained in schools. I'd like to see it back to where we could. We're starting to see it coming back a little bit. We're for years and years and years of schools, and I don't want to talk about schools too much, but where the testosterone basically gets squeezed out of the men. It's done. It's you're to conform. You're to do this. We're seeing shooting teams coming back. So we're seeing these skeet shooting teams. Our own school there in Flushing has a great skeet shooting team. Thank God to the guys running it, Marty Coe and others were. Great bunch of people. Matt Hartman's got Luke out there working all the time. He's got great people out there working with the Genesee Sportsman's Club in the Flushing, literally having a shooting team now. I understand the football team is suffering because not a lot of guys want to play football this year, but the shooting team is packed. So so I'm all for it. So and Jacob used to shoot with the juniors too, the NRA juniors. So I know it's something that has to come from within, though. It has to, you have to pursue it. Just as you will probably teach your grandkids martial arts, hopefully slip a little gun skills in there, too.
And I'm a member of the Frankenmuth Conservation Club, and we have a great youth program, and I know our Saginaw Field and Stream does as well. And and so, we try to show up at, in fact, the Saginaw Gun Club tonight has their big annual picnic. And
good.
And so we're, you get a chance to get young people around those cultures and talk to people and just so they're not startled by it when they see or hear a gun.
Exactly.
Right?
Jacob, what's going on next week down at Linden?
Well, we've got that, but we're going to talk about that when we come back.
But I want to mention it to Ken.
Well, he's sticking around.
Okay, good. Hang around for a while, Ken. We do got to go to commercial break. Kevin, you're supposed to tell me to push the buttons, man. You're supposed to go like this. Wrap it up. That's all right. We're going to be back in just a minute with a lot more Guns Fist. Hang on. We're going to keep Ken Horn in the hot seat here, talking politics, talking guns. And I think the 2 and 2 kind of go together. So the Gunsmith Show will be right back after a short commercial break.
Who's watching your business? Pal Burglar Alarm can watch them for you. They have over 30 years' experience protecting homes and businesses in mid-Michigan. Pal Burglar Alarm provides 24-hour monitoring service through their UL-listed monitoring center based right here in Michigan. They also offer armed guard services and no long-term contracts. Besides burglary protection, they can also monitor for flooding, sump pump failure, CO2 detection, temperature sensors to prevent pipes from freezing, panic, fire, and driveway alarms. Pal Burglar Alarm, a price you can live with. Call them today at 810-908-8298. That's 810-908-8298 or palalarm.com.
Everyone knows Williams Gun Sight in Davison is the place to go for all your firearm, shooting accessories, hunting gear, and so much more. Plus, great gunsmiths in-house to take care of all your maintenance and customizing needs. But what you might not know, Williams has a great website, williamsgunsight.com. You can browse all their accessories, plus their huge selection of used guns. So definitely check out their website, williamsgunsight.com, and swing into the store, 7389 Lapeer Road, that's in Davison. Exit 143 off I-69. They're open Monday through Saturday, 9 until 6, and Sunday, 10 until 5. Williams Gun Sight, on the range since 1926.
Let's talk about a private matter, insuring your guns. Do you know that your home insurance has limitations when it comes to insuring guns? To get the most out of a policy, you need to schedule your guns and collectibles. Zach Goodhart is the Farm Bureau insurance agent who understands guns and how to insure them properly. Zach is an avid sportsman that respects the value of your gun collection and will work with you to make sure you are covered. Contact Zach Goodhart from Farm Bureau at 810-391-2455. Zach is a board member of the local Safari Club International, a member of Pheasant Forever, and the NRA. Call Zach Goodhart today to protect your way of life at 810-391-2455.
And now back to the Gunsmith Show with John and Jake Smith.
All right, we're back on the air. We are the Gunsmiths, John and Jake Smith, as Dan Foley just reminded you. You can reach us here in the studio at 810-743-8255. We do have Ken Horn on the hot seat with us. He's former state rep and running for the state senate in the new 32nd district. Now, it's not a new number, not a new district, but it's the boundaries have changed a little bit, and we discussed that. But more importantly, you're going to be representing a real bunch of good red-blooded Americans out there, Ken, and we're glad you're here with us. So we've talked a little bit about our history here in Michigan and a little bit about hunting. You don't do much hunting anymore, though, eh?
No, I don't have much anymore. I'm more of a shooter now, and I just like to plink around a little bit, and just keep the skills. We had just last month at Cigar Caucus, we ended up kind of shooting skeet. And I was kind of embarrassing.
Everybody gets embarrassed on the skeet range now.
but when we got the pistol out, I hit my mason jar at 40 yards 5 times out of 6, and so
good for you.
That's where I really enjoy myself. Well, that's a good skill to have.
Mm-hmm. It's a good skill to have. We get a chance to shoot everything, and we got a couple of wants we haven't done yet, but we're getting there. So we need to find somebody with a 50 caliber is going to let us shoot it. So but other than that, the pistols, the rifles, the shotguns, we have a lot of fun with. Now, there's been a lot of pro-gun legislation come through lately, and we're happy to hear that. When you're discerning bills and you're looking at stuff as a former state rep, explain to us a little bit about the procedure. Is there just a ton of political pressure? It's follow me type thing, or is it? What's it like there in the House? Well, we set up committees for a reason. As I mentioned earlier, I chaired the House Energy Committee, and I sat on tax policy and regulatory reform. And I was on natural resources for a couple of terms, and that's when we dealt with the gun legislation. Mm-hmm. And we looked at you had testimony, and you listen and you hear, and I go out there, and if I'm co-sponsoring bills and I'm talking to other legislators, they have to count on me to be the expert in whatever committee. You're the one that's done the due diligence to find out about it. So you get people like Senator Mike Green from the Thumb that he usually has some pretty clean legislation, and if he's talking about gun legislation, you can pretty much trust it.
And then and then you sit down and talk with him, and he says, "Here's what it does." It's going to be hard for listeners to believe, probably, but trust is the coin of the realm in Lansing.
Yeah.
And I know that they don't trust their legislators a lot of times, and sometimes for good reason.
Well, some we do.
Yeah.
Some we do.
But if a lobbyist or a staffer or another legislator ever lied to me, that the hair goes up in the back of my neck, and you never listen to them again, right? And so you kind of wind your way around. You learn. You kind of do inventory. You know who everybody is.
Right.
One of the weaknesses of term limits is that you really don't get to know people as well as you should. And and I understand the reasoning behind term limits, but the short term limits that we have, by the time I get to know somebody and I say, okay, I want to co-sponsor your bill, or I want to work with you on this project, you're gone. Yeah,
I seeing some of our legislators stay there for those years that they did, and we know as incumbents how look at. I think you and I are almost the same age. Carl Levin's been our senator since we've been voting. So the man's seldom voted for anything I've ever been in favor for, and it drives me crazy. I'd like to see term limits on senators at that point, but in state house and state rep.
Well, they do have a term limit. It's when they expire, their limits.
Yeah. So, when they expire, when they're ripe. Yeah. It's like
once they're in the ground, the seat's opened up, and a family member can take it over.
The Senate's a fruit market.
But if you really
they throw it away.
Yeah, you really study the history though a little bit about our founding fathers and how they put the Constitution together, and every 4th of July I reread the Declaration of Independence. And,
sure.
And you really discover why they wrote the Constitution the way they did, based on that document. And for me, if I'm lucky enough to win this seat, and I plan to,
yes,
that's 8 years. It'll take me close to retirement. Then enjoy life.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, I'm not compelled to be in office. I just feel like I need to get something done.
And I'm sure you have an agenda, that you want to work on. So. What I get tired of, what I'd like to see, I'd like to see something come along the lines of, now, and we're talking state, but on a national level, I'd like to see a senator. Can you imagine if they put limitations that they're not able to double their wealth by more than like one? You know what I mean? Would that be something, or because how do they go in as millionaires and they leave as billionaires? That's what bothers me. Yeah. So tell me that the fox isn't running a hen house. Yeah. When we're talking about your agenda, what's on the pipe for you? What's down the pipe for you? What are you thinking?
Well, first of all, we've got to make sure we keep Michigan on the right track. I think the mood in Michigan is fairly good. Generally speaking, and polling shows that people think Michigan's on the right track. But we have a lot of jobs out there in this region, Genesee County, Saginaw, Bay, Midland. We probably have 1,000 machinist jobs that are unfilled right now because we don't have skilled workers. We're not training hands-on, for kids anymore. Industrial arts classes are gone, shop classes are gone, and so we really need to focus in what I refer to as true education reform. Finding curious kids, and do they know what's out there? Do they know how to get to it?
Right. Not everybody's going to be able to make a living on a keyboard.
Right.
There's going to be, but the industrial arts has got to come back.
Right.
I see schools that have their industrial arts departments mothballed because they don't see a need for it anymore.
Part of their skills on the keyboard, come in pretty handy when you're working a CNC machine.
That's exactly what I was going to say. I didn't want to get too technical.
Yeah, great. My daughter, who's is talking about going to welding school because she likes art, and and if we start teaching kids that there's things out there for them that might be very interesting, but I ask the question of educators, legislators, business people: are we graduating curious students from our high schools?
Yeah.
And and a lot of them will tell you no. We're just getting them through the system.
Right.
And so how do we get these kids? Not every kid's going to go to a 4-year college,
right?
And get a degree. And we still need people that have high skills. The other thing that we need to work on is obviously our infrastructure. We need to reset a priority on our infrastructure. I don't know how they're going to solve the pothole issue in Michigan ultimately. But I tell you what, we lost a 500,000 people out of the state between the years 2000 and 2010. Mm-hmm. That's part of the reason we redistricted the way we did. And
right.
And if you wonder how are we going to get those people back here, between 2010 and 2020, if we wanted to gain a 500,000 people, what would you do?
Well, smoother roads might help, but I think they're doing a great job of it.
But manufacturing is the key. Producing something. We need to make steel. We need to build things, and we need to have power plants to build those things. And, and I've gone head to head with the folks on the other side of the aisle.
Right.
I'm building power plants, and if the president keeps his promise to bankrupt the coal industry,
we're not going to be able to build it.
We're going to be in tough shape even by as early as 2015.
Ken, when you look at just knowing what America used to be, knowing what Flint used to be 40 years ago, looking at the pictures of Shanghai and looking at the pictures of South Korea. In those towns that are lit up so bright at night that they can see them from satellites. And then you look at America and it's basically dark now because all we have is city lights being run in towns like Detroit that are every other light shot out. So we have a serious problem in this country, and you're right. We have to embrace energy. We have to embrace our natural resources. We have to embrace our working force. So,
but you're an outdoorsman. You're a conservationist, right?
Yep.
And so you want clean water, so you can fish in the river again, and you want to be able to get out into the wildlife. You want clean air for your kids. All of those things, there has to be a balance, and I think we've gone too far sometimes on either side, and and so we can do this thing. We have that capability. But I just got my son here, John, from Ecuador, my grandson.
Yes.
9 months old. The immigration process, 18 months for my daughter-in-law. Wow. It's just miserable. And the question is, he's an American citizen by birthright. Is he going to have the same opportunities, to live a modest life in an exceptional country that my dad had when he came here in 1958?
Wow, big changes.
Yeah, I got a lot of work to do.
Yes, there is a lot to do in there.
Well, we have to go to commercial break.
We do.
But when we come back, we've got a couple other things to talk about.
Yeah, and Ken, if you'll stick around, it'd be great. If you got to go, we understand.
No, pancakes they'll flip some new ones for me, I think.
Okay, good. So hang on tight. The Gunsmiths will be right back with Ken Horn and some gun talk. So hang on tight.